Hi there, welcome to this webinar. My name is Jane Karina. I am a test analyst at Magnetism, and today we'll be looking at Azure DevOps, primarily at the test execution module. I'll be touching on a little bit of the end-to-end process for testing Azure DevOps. However, I'll be mainly focusing on the ways that Azure DevOps allow for manual test execution using their platform. This involves executing the test cases that have been linked to user stories, Azure DevOps integrated tools for capturing test evidence, bugs, and test reporting as well. What is Azure DevOps? Azure DevOps is a collaborative platform, an application for developing software used by developers, testers, project managers, and other contributors. It covers the development lifecycle throughout using the following services. The first one here is Azure DevOps. It involves work planning, tracking using Kanban and Scrum methodology, for example, boards. It makes it very easy for project managers to use and track and make sure that all work is being worked on, what's falling behind, what's ahead. The next one is Azure Repos, which is the Git and Team Foundation version control for code development. It's used by teams to ensure that code is up to the latest version and making sure that everyone is using the correct code repo. Azure Pipelines is the build and release services for continuous integration and delivery of applications. This allows teams to deploy to the production or test environments or whatever environments they require. The next one, and one I'll be focusing on today, is Azure Test Plans. It involves test case creation, planning, and execution, including, but not limited to, the capturing of test evidence, any bug creations, any export import for test cases, and so on and so forth. And the last one is Azure Artifacts, which is package sharing and integration into pipelines to support development. This includes Node, NPM, anything that developers may require to help them with development. So today I'll be looking at mainly the testing process. So we have a few steps here from the very beginning of testing till the very end. The first part that we're looking at is the test case. Now, we have to understand user stories to make sure that we know what we're testing exactly. This comes back to acceptance criteria and ensuring that whatever the developer has created fits these. These test cases are created to check if it fulfills the criteria. So we need to make sure that our guesses also check these and that it withstands negative testing such as edge cases and other scenarios that are not specifically specified in the acceptance criteria. These can be linked back to user stories for ease of access. The next step after we've created test cases are to create test plans. Test plans in Azure DevOps is where the test suites are going to be held. These test suites hold a test point, which is a test case of a certain setting, such as a certain browser and a certain operating system. And these test suites are generally based on the user story. And so because they're all linked back together, it's very easy to see which test cases are going to be for which user story as we've linked them already earlier. The next part is test execution. It allows execution of test points. Each step of the test is validated as instructed in the test case and against the platform tested. For example, testing against the Chrome browser and testing against Firefox may hold different results because some developers may have optimized it for Chrome and not for Firefox. These test suites are going to have the different test points in them. It's very easy to see that. And the evidence taken in Azure DevOps are then linked to the execution run. Execution validation is after we have finished all the execution. If any bugs need to be created, this is where it's found. They can be created from within the test execution and are linked back to the story. And if no bugs are found, then the test is passed. There are several benefits as to why we want to test in Azure DevOps. The first one is the end-to-end test lifecycle in one platform without requiring or needing separate platforms to track everything, without needing separate tools. It covers from test case creation to test execution creating and validating bugs, then any test reporting required is shown in the execution validation. It's fully integrated between work items. Sorry, that's meant to say work items right there. Um, User stories can be linked to tests, which can be linked to test suites and test execution, and are then linked to any raised bugs. This allows for flow and traceability as well. Test suites and test points can be automatically created in test plans, which allows ease of test plan creation. Bugs can be automatically created if test execution fails, which can be done from the test execution panel, and it shows exactly which test and the test step that raised the bug. The bug can also include any test evidence that was taken earlier. Evidence can be taken without the need of an external tool, as Azure DevOps has integrated test evidence tools such as a screen capture tool, a screen video recording tool with voiceover audio if required, and a detailed action log of all actions that the user takes. Easy test reporting with automated charge in Azure DevOps will show how many tests have been executed and which ones have been passed and which ones have failed, which is very helpful if you're managing a project and you want to know exactly if you're hitting the deadlines or not. Now I'll show you how Azure DevOps test execution tools actually work in practice. I'll go to the sandbox that I have created. So we have here the test plans page, where all test execution lives in Azure DevOps. To start, we need to create a test plan first and set it to an iteration or a sprint. Some people know it as sprint, some people know it as iteration. Either way, it works. I'll type in the name here. The idea is that one test plan can be used for one iteration or sprint so that all test execution lives alongside the project's development. We have several sprints here. I'll just use this main one. Now we have an empty test plan and now we need to create test suites. We'll use a requirement-based test suite, which allows us to use conditions to find the stories to test. For example, we're using the current area and the current iteration as a condition, and so we should only find stories under this iteration. Now, this is a test I want to take. It's been assigned to me, and so I'll create a test suite. Azure DevOps has automatically created test suites for the stories selected and has created test points as well for any test cases that were linked to the story. This was just created and automatically linked as I had already linked this story together. I can show you that. So this is the story, and you can see that it's been linked to the test case, and that's why this test point was automatically created. We can add more test cases to this in the future, however, and when that has been added, it will also show as an extra test point here. But we'll just execute it this one first. So there's 3 different methods to execute a test point. There is a run for web application, run for desktop application, and run with options. The first one is a web-based test runner application, which I find easiest as you don't need to download anything and it just opens on its own. Like that. We also have the desktop application, which functions the same way as the web-based. But as you see, it requires a download, and so it might not be as accessible to everyone. You can see that it has the same functionalities as the web application anyways, so it's not the most useful, in my opinion. We also have several different options to run the test if the integrated tools are not what you prefer, or if you need a test a specific build. Most times this isn't required, unless your project releases different components to different builds. So you have different options here. The first two are the first two that we saw there. Automated tests on earlier versions of the test runners. And then you can select a build if you'd want to, but we're not going to do any of that at the moment. I'll be using the webless application where the functions are also the same as the desktop application. When you run the test execution, it will show the test steps that you've written and input in the test case as well as expected results. This allows you to check between the test steps and the expected results, as well as the application that you're testing with ease. At the top right, you have several options for test evidence capture. We'll go through each one. We have the capture screenshot tool here, which allows you to capture your screen or a specific region. So you can have the entire screen, any windows, and any Chrome tabs. So for example, if I were to capture just a little part, I can also choose to capture the full screen, and that's also an option as well. And I can also annotate it. So for example, using the circle and using a rectangle, if I need to show exactly what on there I need to specify. Arrows and text and blurring as well if I need to blur out sensitive information. Very useful if you have to show to your clients and you can't show any sensitive material. It's also incredibly helpful as any further detail you can give to your developers will allow them to find the root cause of the issue faster. If you can pinpoint exactly what you're having trouble with, then it means that they can understand exactly what issues you're facing. We have the image action log, which captures all actions that the user takes on a specific window browser. So this isn't as useful if the application that you're testing is not on the window browser or spans between several window browsers. For example, if you're testing an application or a program. However, this captures each action in detail as images and splits each action between the test steps based on what you're passing or failing. So if I were to do this, then I can click between, click here, and it will capture all of my steps as well. And then if I were to do that, it will capture this what I've inputted as new steps. And then I can stop it, and it should also record. I'll click save to make sure that it's been saved, and if I need to go back to it, it's there. If the application you're testing does not involve window browsers or involve several, you can use a screen recording tool and have it saved as a video, like that. This option, this first option doesn't allow for audio recording. However, if you click on the three dots here, you'll find an option to record screen with audio, and so you can give your own voiceover if you'd like. If you have your own test evidence that you have captured separately, you can upload it as attachments, like that. And you can also add comments to each step. And so, for example, if I need to add a comment here, I can just say, testing. If a step were to fail and need to raise a bug, you can do so with the create bug button. So for example, if I were to fail this step here, I can add a comment as well, and I can create a bug. It will create I will import all test steps that you've used earlier and test execution results into the bug. So you can see the attachment there. This allows ease in bug creation instead of having to go through and copying and pasting each step that you took, although you're allowed to revise this if required. So for example, failed test, and you can also add more in here. So for example, the bug also captures your computer's hardware in case it's the hardware that had caused the issue. So for example, your browser, your operating system, and you can also attach the test execution to an existing bug. So if I were to close this, Oops, I have accidentally closed it. Um, we'll run it again. Yeah. So if I were to say as fails, and I can add it to an existing bug, I'll just need to do oh, I found several new bugs. I can add to this bug, and it should show the steps I took earlier as well, and so forth, so on. I can leave this. Once you have finished the test execution, feel free to save or close. And once it's been saved, you can view the test execution history and the outcomes. So this is the one I've just done. These hold your comments and any test evidence that you saved earlier. And so you can see there's the test steps, there's the action log that I use with the image action tool. And so you can see all the actions I took between all the steps that I had. You can also view any comments as well. I didn't manage to save my comments earlier, but you should be able to see them here. It also allows you to download any test evidence, what I've shown earlier, and any bugs that were raised from this test execution or linked are also linked on this page. I didn't manage to save it to a bug. However, I will show a different run that I did save to a bug. So you'll see my bug here. I managed to link that earlier because the test execution has failed. And I had a comment because I had failed the test step. This way, developers are able to find which test run and any test evidence involved that led to the bug. I hope that this fully explains different ways to capture test evidence and how to execute tests in Azure DevOps, as well as how to link the different user stories and bugs to test execution. The tools that Azure DevOps has created for testing can be incredibly powerful when used correctly, as the amount of automation that has gone into the test execution, test evidence taking, and bug creation allows for a seamless testing experience. Proper test execution and test evidence capturing is invaluable to any project, as thorough detailing of tests can allow a team to communicate clearly and solve issues fast, and this will help your project to be delivered with as few roadblocks as possible. Thank you so much for watching this webinar. We hope that this helps you on your software testing journey with Azure DevOps.